Yeah, it's your king here, King Trikk. King Trikk here, Nordic. Yeah, it's your king here, King Trikk, Nordic Confederacy, KHAN. And going to cover some important ground today. I feel like today I'm going to another level of my kingship. I know my kingship has been established, and but I just feel like it's being it's gaining weight, if you will. It's gaining momentum and weight in its kind of gravitas, if you will. And I don't know if it's insights I have into things comical, like James Comey, things that are very comical, and Mulehead Mueller, and I don't know. I'm a historian and I'm a king and I have to study history. And Napoleon and Uncle Adolf could never defeat Russia. Even if you get east of Moscow, all the way to Denali, you have like a great Nordic kingdom. You know what I mean? It's kind of like thinking about Cucci and Karl and Heigenhauser, Schaefer, who couldn't do executive protection, none of them, and an unassailable base with China and Russia. Makes you think. You know what I mean? But I think Comey and Mueller need to study English common law and go knee deep into Langdale and Blackstone and find that discernment. I think they're DID, deficient in discernment, different than ADD, by the way. Kind of an opinion, but more than an opinion, because I'm a king and I have insights being a king, pithy insights. And I wouldn't want to be in a foxhole with Comey or Mueller because I think they're kind of pansies, in my opinion. Just an opinion. I'm a king and I can have opinions. So the divine vacuum cleaner, I don't know if he's a Kabbalist or what he is. He sent me these cards. The Aleph, the Bet, and the Gimel. And the divine vacuum cleaner is very interesting. And he's got a deep relationship with the Finnish Mongols. It's very fascinating. And it has to do with the Kuf, which leads to the Resh, the Shin, and the Tav. But the great Finnish Mongol, Chief Little, who is very good friends with the Finnish Satan, who is in my spiritual roundtable. So I want to make a couple things clear with the Finnish Mongols. Apache Man is on board. Trikk Lee, I think, is going to come on and talk about the entertainment side of what's going on in the Nordic Confederacy. And I want to say this. The Apache Man has a serious war going on with the Samboozler. Okay? It's a serious war. And the Samboozler is trying to get the best of Apache Man, but Apache Man's fighting. Okay? And once he realizes that I'm king of the Finnish Mongols, he's going to be okay. And he might get a Finnish Mongol instead of a Finnish Mangal, which is what the Samboozler wants, if you know what I mean. Something to think about. But Martin Luther, the great Protestant reformer who has a big problem with Lloyd de Young, who he calls Lloyd de Wrong, the Black Pope, over the issue of the Vatican, said, King Trikk, read this scripture to Apache Man to kind of encourage him. And it's from the Sea Island Creole. Queen Candid, Southside Chicago, Sea Island Creole, who's in Seattle with the Podfather, Podfada Sea Island Creole, working on the Seattle Island Creole. This is from Galatians 6. Must help one another. Me Christian brethren, if somebody da do sinful thing and una find out about him, una what da do what God's Spirit tell una, oughta go help that one for stop sin. So the spiritual roundtable is trying to help Apache Man stop his sin because he's fighting the Samboozler. And everybody has a Samboozler inside of them. Don't kid yourself. Even the king of the Nordic Confederacy has one. Believe me. So we ain't giving up on the Apache Man in his war against the Samboozler. And all the Finnish Mongols know it, and the Finnish Mongals. And we don't want the Apache Man finding himself a Finnish Mangal. We don't want that, because that's what happened to a certain Minnesota cream pie. But we'll get to him later. So I just want to reaffirm the Nordic Confederacy. I'm getting a new Chinese fighting fan because I got a new Chinese massage therapist who I'm trying to marry if she'll elope on a train. She's hotter than the last one. You know how when you go to a bar, you got wenches who don't have the guts to be a whore, but then you got whores. And it makes me think about the French hairdresser. But that's another story. And Chief Little can handle that, the Finnish chieftain who's head of the Finnish Mongols. And he is the Finnish, he's in league with the Finnish Satan, who's part of my spiritual roundtable, who is taking on the Finnish Jesus, who is connected with the Samboozler. And we all know it, especially Manu. He knows it. So let me just say I have my scepter right here, representing the Nordic Confederacy, which is very different than which is a community, by the way. Eskimo Mafia, dysfunkalicious veterans, funky and delicious, and very dysfunctional. We have Eskimo Mafia. We have a variety of homeless people. We have wayward politicians. We have all kinds of, it's a real ragamuffin crew, if you will. But they love their king, and I love them. We have the lead-filled fish bat, which is good for walloping Arctic char when I'm up in my throne room in the Arctic. It's a lead-filled fish bat right there. It's good for Eskimo collie. And I have my Japanese whaling knife, which I got from the Podfather Sea Island Creole, when I have to skin a caribou with Manu, who's one of the Finnish Mongols. Hang on a second, I got a call here. It's the Big Cheesy calling me. But I got to ignore the Big Cheesy right now, and I'll call him back. So maybe I'll take the call. Maybe I'll call him here in a second. We'll see if he calls back. I want to make another point. Now listen up here. I was on Leached years ago, Leitch, because of a certain Davy Leach, Leech, and I may be talking about Leech Lake. It's key in the Nordic Confederacy. But I can tell you this, Bob Seger had a song, Love's the Last to Know. And it's a great song by Bob Seger out of Michigan. And I can tell you this, we know this, the Rock is not a rock, and neither was Donahue. But the ROK is a rock in the earth, but it's not the rock that comes, that's not hewn by human hands, and that's another rock. But I can tell you this, McCormick and Rock Johnson, who's not a rock, had something going, and he's got to figure out what Seeger meant by love's the last to know, because I've been unleashed. I can tell you that right now. But don't worry, when you think about Wick and Ilsa Strix and the whole crew, Prick, vicious that is, can take Wick, and Ilsa Strick and the Wachowskis know, because I spent some time in the Castro district before I was a king. It's part of the process you have to go through to become a king. Okay? And I know this. The Apache man looks at the Samboozler, who is very similar to a certain Minnesota cream pie. And that Minnesota cream pie, you know, in the Old Testament, Samuel and King David allowed Saul's grandson to eat at the king's feet, Mephibosheth. When you think about the Samboozler and the Minnesota cream pie in the Seattle Island Creole translation, you have Mephibosheth, but we call them Mephibosheth for brains. So with the cream pie and the Samboozler, you don't have Mephibosheth, you have the Seattle Island Creole version, which is Mephibosheth for brains. I can tell you that right now. So I think the Apache man's going to get the best of the Samboozler before it's all said and done. But any of us who've been through the school of Samboozling knows you can't get bamboozled when you've been through the school of Samboozle, because he knows how to Samboozle. Now I want to say this about a certain Minnesota cream pie and a certain Irene O'Hara and a certain Catelyn, who reminds me of the Catwoman from the old Batman who wears latex. And that may have something to do with Ilsa Strix and the California porn industry and the British Broadcasting Corporation, the BBC, and black Pringles cans. I'm a king. I don't know this for sure, but I have to look into all of this stuff because I'm a king. And we know this. There's a big difference between being a husband and being an adulterer, okay? I got to call the big cheesy here from Wisconsin. And we spell it Wisekhansin because we know he's full of sin. We know that for sure. So anyways, you've got this cream pie who was some adulterer with a certain porn star named Irene O'Hara, better than Barbara Dare, with a daughter named Catelyn, who reminds me of the cat girl with the latex. Now, I ain't saying there's an S&M involved with this, and I ain't saying there isn't. All bets on the table with this crowd. They're so crazy. So I'm glad I covered these issues. Let it all hang out. Air your dirty laundry, right? So this is the deal. When you think of Lloyd DeYoung and Jay Smith and Al Fadi and Bill Warner and Elaine Ellinger and Robert Spencer and Brother Mel from Islamic Origins, and you throw in Martin Luther, the great Montana Protestant reformer, you got something. Don't kid yourself. You definitely got something. So I'm live right now. I'm calling the big cheesy right now. The Wisconsinite. Is he answering? You're not answering. I don't know what's going on with the big cheesy. He might be taking orders from Swifty Taylor. We don't know. All bets on the table. So we're looking into Sharia with DeYoung. But Martin Luther, the Montana Protestant reformer, has a problem with Lloyd DeWrong, who seems to be promoting the Vatican, or the Vatican, as we call it in Protestant country, because we like our freedom, by the way. We don't believe in the Euchre crisis. We don't think that Jesus, unless it was the finished Jesus, got caught in a little wafer, and we don't call it the Eucharist, we call it the Euchre crisis. But we can tell you this, the finished Satan is more accurate than the finished Jesus. And the Samboozler don't like hearing this, but it's true nonetheless. Now, Coochie, Nelson, Heigenhauser, and Schaefer don't know executive protection. And Coochie and Carl need to realize that unassailable base coming out of Russia and China. You're just creating a debacle. You can't, they don't have to win the war. They're just not going to lose it. Are you crazy? And I don't know what to say to those boys. They got issues. We know that. I sure wouldn't want to be living where they're living. King Trikk knows better because he likes hanging out in the Yukon and up by Denali, and maybe go over into Irkutsk or Vladivostok. I did work with hot sales girls at one time, by the way. So the Minnesota cream pie never had a stepdaughter or a daughter he called Munchkin. That's not true. He had Catelyn, who wears latex. Is a big fan of the British Broadcasting Corporation, if you know what I mean. Can you blame the poor girl? What her and Irene O'Hara had to go through with the cream pie? You can't blame them. Tater Tot Sue knows. Tater Tot Sue knows. She's no dummy. She ain't very bright, but she's not a dummy. Like a certain Ginny the one-legged German leprechaun. Okay, what else do I want to talk about here? Global affairs. Oh, the DNC party. That was a hell of a party. And I'm mad at Pennsylvania not letting my candidate, Cornel West, on the ballot. I like Cornel West, and he wrote a book called Prophetic Fragments. And I'm hoping when this dumb election's over, we can hook up with Tavis Smiley and we can start hanging out. Because I think he'll accept King Trikk of the Nordic Confederacy and want to hang out and talk about the social gospel and social justice and the mystery of the parables. I think you'll want to hang out with me. And I think he has some insights into Willie Brown, Montel, and Kamalama Ding Dong. And I think I'd have a blast with this guy. No doubt about it. So we hit a lot of important royal issues today. And we didn't even get into the new Team America with Nehushtan Stan and Davy Boy Leach in Dirty Davy. And Dirty Gary investigated Dirty Davy. And I can hear Nehushtan Stan saying to Dirty Davy, act, Dirty Davy. You're an aficionado with that camera. Just ask Statham and Rock Johnson, who, by the way, has something going with McCormick in the deeps. And Dirty Davy can't scratch that itch because he just don't got it. He's lighting the loafers. And Bob Seger wrote a song, Love's Last to Know. So, anyways, things are going great in the Nordic Confederacy. We got Krog logs. I'm pretty sure I'm going to elope with this new Chinese massage therapist who's a little more, she went down the bad road. I dare say she might have been a whore at one time. But at least a whore's got a little more courage than like a bar wench who doesn't really have the courage, but just plays that game. And they're no good anyways, you know what I mean? So, I don't know. And we have to be merciful. If you think about Rahab, Tamar, Ruth, and Bathsheba, and everyone blames King Dawid, and don't think that Bathsheba didn't know what was going on, wasn't playing her game, and doing a little booty shake. We know she was. And David, typical Jewish boy, caves into a shiksa. It's not an unknown story in the annals of history, believe me. Or her story. I'm trying to make Elizabeth Warren, who I call Pocahontas, happy. Because she knows she's going to be a big part of what's coming down the road. Poor girl. Anyways, King Trikk here, Nordic Confederacy, covering what's going on with Rock Johnson, who's not a rock, McCormick, Dirty Davy, who is a leech, L-E-E-C-H. I've been unleached, going into Bollywood with Trikk Lee and the crew, and I'm excited about it, although I'm a king and I got to take care of serious issues. I like to have fun with the entertainment group, and Trikk Lee's around. I think he's going to come and do a video for you guys, and I know you like to be entertained after the heavyweight, deep topics that your king talks about. Donahue isn't a rock. He never was. He's a pebble. And the only rock your king served with was the ROK Taekwondo rock instructor on Yadkin. So sometimes you just got to clear the air. Reichling we called weakling because that's the truth. And the McThistles are out there rolling around. And Comey and Mueller are pretty silly. And it's very comical what's going on. And I like what's going on with this whole Sharia crowd. And it's pretty cool. unleash some of this stuff and get into some jurisprudence. I'm a king. I have to look into this, being an expert in English common law. And, looking in the Torah and the Royal Covenant instructions and the Dharma, the great pivot of the East. And, just doing kingly stuff and get ready to have Swifty Taylor and possibly the Big Cheesy out here. And really worried about Apache Man staying away from the Sam Boozler. King Trikk, Nordic Confederacy. Over and out.